Deep breath in. Wow. Okay. Like I'm sure you would tell all the students that you work with, put your phones down. Get your moment, do your picture. And then let's be present together. This is a really special thing to have all of you together. To have you all speaking with each other, what works, what doesn't work, the help that you need. It's wonderful to hear about how you've all come together so quickly to help out in Houston, to help out in Florida, the team that you're sending to Puerto Rico in a week. The thousands and thousands of schools that ended up putting in stuff for school supplies and uniforms and water, sanitary napkins. When push comes to shove, you all show up, and you show up bigly, and that's really beautiful. And you've also shown up here today, and you can recognize your power not just in a major crisis, but every single day. The fact that you get up every morning and you make that commitment to show up, to be the example for our children, is profound. I have family members who are teachers. I have a mom who is very assertive about the kind of education that I could get access to, especially as she was 16 when she got pregnant with me. She had teachers who just kind of pushed her along. She was my height at 9. She was 6 foot at 13. Beautiful, great singer, and everyone just figured, you're just gonna be, you're our star here at the school, you're gonna somehow make it. And then she got pregnant, and everyone turned their back on her. And because she gets gestational diabetes, she fell down the stairs at Lincoln High School in Coney Island, and she had to drop out. And she got her GED, as she calls her good enough diploma. And she raised me to believe that I could do anything and everything, and that it wasn't a sacrifice to have me, that it was her joy. She didn't put off her life, she started her life. And she showed up every single day, and sometimes she'd have her nose ring in at PTA meetings, and it looked like a booger, and I'd be a little bit like, Mom, really? But she was there. And she got me into every after-school program because that's what we could afford. And she fought. And I know charter schools right now are very, very controversial for a very good reason. But at that time, in the late 80s, early 90s, there was a group of parents that came together and said, let's try to get this funding from these colleges for our kids. And I was one of 60 children that ended up being in a segmented part of my elementary school and started hearing about STEM then. We were being encouraged to get into the sciences, into technology, into engineering, into mathematics. I took a civil engineering course over the summer at Columbia University. I took pre-calculus and calculus at the Cooper Union. I just found out my favorite teacher, Professor Condor Parakis, is no longer with us, which makes me sad that I didn't get to tell him how much he meant to me. And his crazy Einstein hair, and his mix of a blue vest today, a red vest today, a blue vest today, a red vest today. Just his being, showing what was important. It wasn't this, wasn't this. It was understanding math and how exciting that was to understand math. That, yeah, I could give you this formula that could cut into the equation, but if you understand what it means, you could do it the long way. And the best thing about that is you can always check so you know you have the right answer. Isn't that awesome? And I was already a babysitter for many years, and I became a tutor, which I always thought that was the craziest thing, that I would tutor my school peers' younger siblings. I'm like, I'm getting paid to come to your house to do what you should do. Awesome. And it was people like him that moved me to want to be better and strive better. So I'm really glad that my mom fought for that for me. And the anecdote I just told you was, I showed up on the first day, and they went, wait, you're Rosario? And I went, yeah. And they're like, we thought you were a boy. So there were 31 girls in that program and 29 boys. And I fought to stick in there. And it wasn't great. It wasn't perfect. We didn't have gym. They kept trying to do things to kind of make our numbers sort of show up, so we studied Japanese for like 2 minutes. I still know how to count to 10. We didn't have a lot of things. When it moved over into a high school, which they were not prepared for, we moved into this space that just looked like a prison. It was scary, it was dangerous, and it really wasn't the best education, but it was still better in a lot of ways than a lot of other people in our community were getting, just because they were focused so much on telling us what their expectations for us were, that we could be engineers, that we could be scientists. And I just want to say, I think it's so remarkable how much time and energy people spend on trying to figure out what the influences are of their children, and how little research they do into the teachers that actually spend most of their time with your child. I'm grateful that my mom put that time in, and I'm so grateful that all of you do. I know and understand how neglected so many communities are, let alone from my mom having to drop out to the community at large that I work with all across the nation. I work with many different schools and different organizations, but in my neighborhood that I grew up alone, the teenage pregnancy rates, the dropout rates, it's outrageous. And the biggest thing that you are all fighting against is the emotional intelligence of the children that you're working with. They're coming from single-parent homes. They're afraid of ICE coming and taking their parents away. They're having to dodge bullets on their way to school. And you're there not just trying to teach them to get good grades and potentially have a strong future, but just to show up for themselves emotionally, to reach out to each other, to be good people. So when I hear that you are immediately, before it's not even finished raining in Houston, and he's getting a call because all of you have already communicated with each other and are figuring out a way to help, that's the stuff that really teaches your kids, that really shows them what it is to show up. They might not get that from their parent who's harried and working multiple jobs. They might not get that from their community at large, which is letting them know that it's totally okay to hang out in the streets, that we don't have much expectation for them. But when you show up like that, and you show up for each other like that, you become what Maya Angelou says, the rainbow in the clouds. And I want to thank you so much for being rainbows in the clouds, because it's stormy out there. It's dangerous and it's scary the world round. And you're showing up in that way and showing what true service is, not just when we talk about our firemen and our military. We recognize so many different people, but we so often forget our teachers. We so often forget all of you behind all of those teachers, pushing for those programs, pushing for that funding. As we hear schools closing down, the fight that you do to make sure that you come together and that no kid gets left behind, regardless of a program or not. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, because I know how truly valuable that is. I just finished taking a nonviolent communications course, because it's never too late to learn. And I recognize, as beautiful as it is to be told how happy and present and Energizer Bunny I can be, which I can, I've hit walls. I have. I grew up in a squat in the Lower East Side during the HIV/AIDS, crack, heroin epidemic in New York City, seeing police riots and a tank come down 13th Street. I have been raped and molested as a child, which so many of the kids that you work with are. I have been hungry. We've dumpster dived. We've done all types of things over the years. I've dealt with family members who have mental illness and disabilities that have not been properly treated. Depression and anger. And sometimes it has definitely gotten the best of me. And I'm just so grateful to be in a moment right now where I don't feel ashamed of that anymore. I don't feel taken down by that anymore. I'm really moved to see what's going on right now, where we're calling out not only our sexual predator in chief, but also people within multiple industries and areas, as you're seeing right now in Hollywood, of people really standing up and going, no more. We've got young kids who are going, I don't know, man, my mom said she worked at this office for 5 years and the guy never learned her name and she had to bring him coffee all the time, but like, I think interns should get paid. And I'm not working for free. And I have rights. And that's because of people like you, who made that understand that that moment could happen now and didn't have to happen later. And I know my grandmother, though she's not with us right now, she'd be so moved to see how kids are using, and so many people are using our technology, not just to take selfies, which is definitely happening. It's very unnerving to recognize when people are doing this, it's not to get reception. But that good camera angle, get that comedy shot. But they're using it to talk about me too. They're using it to talk about him though. They're using it to talk about real change, critical ones. And what you're doing to fight for their education and showing what that looks like, the hard work, the paperwork, the conversations, the in and out, the meetings. It's not just marching out in the streets. It's not just raising your fist up in the air and screaming all the time. Oftentimes it's pretty boring. And it's detailed. And you're showing what that looks like. And that real change is possible. And they're taking that, and they're figuring out how to do that by the means that they know how. And I know it's working because I go online every day and I see what our young people are pushing for. And when you look at what's being spoken about on our higher levels, that's not the expectation. So it's definitely got to be coming from you. So I just want to say thank you again from the bottom of my heart, because I didn't think I would see some of the things that I'm seeing right now. A lot of the things that I accepted because my mom accepted, because my grandmother accepted, that are just the things that you accept about how our society works so that you can make the inroads that you have to make. I thank you so much for drawing a line in the sand and saying, no, I don't accept that. I want more. I might not have been able to have it, but I want my kids to have it. And that means that's our kids. So I just want to say thank you so much for helping to raise our kids. Blessings.